To what extent can a relationship break down before it is irreparable? The 2025 Singapore Grand Prix was not just another race on the calendar. It was a point of no return. And not only for Ferrari as a team, but especially for Charles Leclerc as an individual, as a driver, as a competitor who has carried for years the expectations of returning Maranello to the top of Formula One. That night, under the lights of Marina Bay, the most painful fracture in the recent history of the red team was revealed. From the beginning, something was wrong. On lap 8, the SF25's temperature sensors began recording critical readings in the brake system. A situation that, in Formula One, is practically a death sentence in competitive terms. The team asked Leclerc to begin applying lift and coast, a driving technique where the driver takes his foot off the accelerator well before reaching the braking zone to reduce the thermal load on the brakes and engine. But what in other circumstances is done for a few curves or turns, in Singapore became the only way to survive for more than 50 laps. Charles Leclerc spent 90% of the race managing the brakes, driving a high-performance car as if it were a touring car with red-hot discs. The data revealed by telemetry experts showed that the monégasque lifted up to 200 meters before the ideal braking point. That meant sacrificing between 1.8 and 2.5 seconds per lap, on a circuit where every tenth is gold. But the most serious thing was not the loss of time, it was the loss of confidence. Ferrari had no answers. Not by radio, not from the wall, not from the factory in Maranello. There were no solutions, no clear instructions, no plan B. Just silence and a constant request to take care of the brakes. For a driver who has dedicated his career to this team, who has defended its honor even when the car did not measure up, that helplessness was unbearable. Leclerc, normally restrained in his emotions on the radio, broke the mold. His voice, filtered in recordings not broadcast by the official broadcast, sounded collapsed. The phrase he said needs no context. Don't even complain. For the love of God. We are doing 200 meters of LECO all the time. That was not a pilot giving feedback. He was a man on the verge of emotional breakdown. It was the cry of someone who understood in real time that the dream was over. The situation was so dramatic that even Lewis Hamilton, who has barely had 2 races with Ferrari, was forced to adopt the same conservative driving technique. But his SF25, like Charles's, could not withstand the thermal load. In the final 2 laps, Hamilton lost 44 seconds due to the complete failure of the left front brake, a critical failure that would otherwise have caused a serious accident. To avoid this, he had to exceed the track limits. And as if it were a cruel joke of fate, the FIA penalized him 5 seconds at the end of the race. That penalty in competitive terms is the least of it. What matters is that Ferrari, with 2 champions behind the wheel, with one of the largest budgets on the grid, with the most glorious history of F1 behind it, could not guarantee even a functional car for a city race, in controlled conditions, without rain, without crashes, without external chaos. The disaster was completely internal. And the most alarming thing is that it was not an isolated failure. These types of situations do not happen by chance. They respond to poorly made decisions from the conception of the car, to design errors in thermal management, to insufficient cooling systems, to lack of planning in full race simulations. And when these errors accumulate and are not corrected, the result is a time bomb like the one that exploded that night in Singapore. At that moment, Leclerc understood that Ferrari was no longer a place where he could grow. Neither as a driver, nor as a leader, nor as a contender for the title. Singapore was not a disappointment. It was a revelation. The revelation that no matter how hard he tries to push the team won't always push with him. And when that symmetry disappears, the only exit left is the door. Charles Leclerc is not a reckless driver. Throughout his career in Formula One, he has proven to be calculating, methodical, and extremely sensitive to the technical behavior of the car. Therefore, what happened during qualification at Singapore 2025 was not simply an anecdote taken out of context. It was the clearest sign that the pilot had reached a point of desperation that completely broke his relationship with the team. In Q3, at the most crucial moment of the entire day, when each team refines even the smallest aerodynamic detail in search of thousands, Leclerc made an unexpected decision. From the cockpit, he asked to make a drastic change to the front wing. It was not a technical suggestion based on data or simulations. It was an emotional impulse disguised as tactics. He himself defined it publicly, bluntly: let's try something a little stupid with the front wing. What does this mean in the language of a professional pilot? That there is no more faith. That there is no confidence in the technical direction. That tuning decisions are made from intuition and frustration, not from analysis. That phrase, although brief, condensed years of pent-up tension between Leclerc and the engineering team. And what came next was even more revealing. The objective of this adjustment was to make the SF25 turn better in slow corners, improving the rotation of the front axle. The car suffered from chronic understeer, a problem that had plagued Ferrari since pre-season testing. Adding more load to the front wing seemed like a logical solution, but the result was a disaster. Leclerc completed his final lap with the car even more unstable, now oscillating between understeer and oversteer without any progression. The car became an unpredictable animal, unable to offer confidence in any phase of the curve. And here we are not talking about a simple setup error. We are talking about a team that, in the middle of the qualifying session, did not have a clear direction to maximize performance. From engineers who didn't know how to say no, to a pilot who was clearly looking for desperate answers. How is it possible that Ferrari, a team with more than 1,000 employees, multiple simulators and almost unlimited resources, allowed this type of improvisation in Q3? The answer is not in the numbers but in the structure. And that's where everything starts to fall apart. And in the middle of that crossfire is Charles Leclerc, a driver who, for years, has tried to be the modern face of Ferrari, Schumacher's spiritual successor. The silent leader who does not criticize publicly but demands excellence behind closed doors. That night, that balance was broken. After the collapse in Singapore, the inevitable happened. Charles Leclerc, without a single explosive statement, without an open letter or a dramatic press conference, communicated his most painful decision. And he did it in the quietest way possible, with actions. Behind closed doors, with his trusted circle, he began to prepare his departure from Ferrari. The message was clear. He will not renew his contract beyond 2025. But there is something crucial we must understand. Leclerc is not leaving out of pride. It is not an impulsive reaction to a bad result or a specific argument. He is leaving because he has exhausted every ounce of faith he had left in the Maranello project. For years, he believed in reconstruction. She became engaged to Vasseur. He accepted Hamilton's signing as a sign of ambition. But after Singapore, there were no longer any foundations on which to build. Ferrari, despite its promises, has proven unable to offer you a winning platform. And for a driver who entered F1 with the aura of a future champion, who has lived entire seasons in the shadow of more competitive cars, continuing to wait was no longer a viable option. After the race, Leclerc asked the team to keep a low media profile. I didn't want to fuel the controversy. But at the same time, he activated his contractual environment to begin preliminary talks with at least 2 rival teams. According to leaks collected by specialized media such as Racefans and The Race, the teams that have already approached Leclerc's entourage are Mercedes and Aston Martin. And although these conversations are not yet formal negotiations, the truth is that the domino effect has already begun. Internally, the move was understood by Ferrari's top brass as a kind of unannounced divorce. No one said it out loud, but everyone knew it. Leclerc is out. And if something was missing to confirm it, it was the pilot's direct order not to accept any more strategic decisions without his personal review. A symbolic gesture, but loaded with meaning. It is no longer considered part of a collective project. The problem is not just that Ferrari has lost its star driver. The problem is what this output represents. Charles Leclerc was the face of the Renaissance. He was the product of his own academy, the local hero, the one who had the support of the fans, the sponsors, even the paddock. His departure is not simply a transfer. It is an institutional defeat. And what is coming now is not just a contractual reconfiguration. It is a battle in the driver market that could completely alter the competitive map of Formula One in 2026. Because Leclerc is not just another driver. It is a masterpiece, and all the leading teams know it. There are even those who propose a more radical scenario, that Charles tries to break his contract early. An unlikely scenario, but not impossible. Because if the internal crisis at Ferrari worsens, if the car still doesn't work, if the friction with the coaching staff turns into open conflicts, the goodbye could come sooner than expected. The question is no longer whether Leclerc leaves. The question is when. And even more so, who will sign him? Does Mercedes want him as a natural substitute for Hamilton to build a new era? Will Aston Martin go all in to place Leclerc alongside Alonso in his final year and establish themselves as a dominant force? Or could McLaren even consider an aggressive move, should Norris's surroundings become unstable? And for a while that narrative worked. Leclerc had brilliant performances, epic victories, impossible poles. It withstood years of unbalanced cars, strategic errors, and repeated frustrations. He never lost his composure in public. He never betrayed the team with inflammatory statements. On the contrary, he became an emotional shield for Ferrari, assuming responsibilities that did not belong to him, defending the indefensible, and believing again and again that the following season would be different. Leclerc's departure is not a contractual breach. It is a symbolic fracture, one that defines the end of a cycle of illusion. Ferrari will no longer be able to say that it has a long-term project with its star driver. You will no longer be able to construct redemption narratives. You will no longer have a recognizable face, emotionally linked to the team, who serves as a bridge between the present and the future. Now the Scuderia will have to start from scratch, without a clear leader, without a pilot committed to its long-term vision, without the luxury of making mistakes again.